On July the 16th, 1979, a quiet but monumental shift shook Iraq. Saddam Hussein officially became the president, removing his longtime ally, Ahmed Hassan al-Bakr, from power. But let's be real, this wasn't a shocking revolution or a dramatic overthrow. Saddam had already been Iraq's true puppet master for years. He controlled the intelligence agencies, the military, and most importantly, the Ba'ath Party. The title of president was just the final piece in a puzzle he had been assembling for over a decade. But once he took the throne, Saddam wasn't content with just sitting on it. He needed to ensure no one would ever challenge his power again. And to do that, he had a plan. Just 6 days after taking office on July 22nd, Saddam summoned hundreds of Ba'ath Party officials to an emergency meeting at Al-Quld Hall in Baghdad. The reason? A so-called urgent party assembly. But in reality, it was a trap. One final performance to consolidate power. Saddam wanted everyone who could potentially oppose him under the same roof, and he wanted them to be afraid. Now there had been growing whispers in the party. Some members had openly voiced their opposition to Saddam's rise. Others were more secretive, plotting in shadows. Saddam knew this. He had spies everywhere. So this wasn't just a meeting, it was the beginning of a purge. On that scorching July day, the hall was packed with hundreds of nervous men in suits. The temperature outside was pushing 40 degrees Celsius, and mysteriously, the air conditioning inside the hall wasn't working. Or did he want everyone sweating, anxious, suffocating under both the heat and the pressure? When Saddam finally entered the hall, the tension cracked like dry earth. Everyone stood, silence. He approached the podium but didn't speak. He shuffled his papers, paused, looked over the crowd, moved his papers again. The only sound in the entire hall was the rustling of those pages. Seconds felt like hours. Earlier that day, Saddam had sent one of his closest allies to deliver a private speech to the attendees before he arrived. We don't know exactly what was said. It was never recorded, but the aftermath spoke volumes. The party officials were terrified before Saddam even stepped foot in the hall. Eventually, he called a name, Mohi Abdul Hussein al-Mashhadi. Mashhadi was no ordinary party member. He was high-ranking, respected, and just days before he had publicly opposed Saddam's ascension to the presidency. Now, as his name echoed through the hall, he stood, walked slowly to the podium, and began speaking. What followed was not a speech, it was a confession. Mashhadi admitted to organizing a conspiracy to overthrow Saddam. He named names, he accepted blame, he condemned himself and others. Meanwhile, Saddam sat beside him, calm, lighting a Cuban cigar, completely unbothered. But here's the truth. Mashhadi had been tortured brutally. Before this assembly, he had been beaten until he agreed to say exactly what Saddam's men told him to. They threatened not just him, but his wife, his children. So when he stood up and confessed, he was doing it to save the people he loved. Every word was scripted, every tear rehearsed in blood. After his statement, Mashhadi returned to his seat. Then Saddam stood once more. Again he paused. He puffed on his cigar, slowly, deliberately, savoring the moment like a performance. Then he asked the crowd, "What should we do with the traitors?" Everyone knew there was only one answer: death. A thunderous applause followed, but it wasn't joy, it was fear, survival instinct. People clapped as if their lives depended on it, because they did. Then came the names. One by one, Saddam called out names of suspected conspirators. Each man, when summoned, was told to stand, recite the party's slogan, and walk out of the hall. None of them knew what awaited them outside, but they all had a terrifying idea. One man, trembling, refused. He asked, "Why me? What did I do?" Saddam didn't flinch. He repeated coldly, "Say the slogan and walk out." The man didn't respond. He simply exited, his silence sealing his fate. In total, 68 names were called. After the last man left, Saddam turned to the remaining crowd, smiled, and thanked them for their loyalty. At that moment, many burst into tears. Some cried from relief, others from pure terror. Some clapped like they had just won the World Cup. Saddam himself wiped away a tear, but whether it was pride, grief, or victory, no one could tell. Now, what happened to the 68 men who walked out that day? They were immediately arrested and loaded into military trucks. The next day, a sham trial took place. Within hours, 22 of them were sentenced to death. But here's where it gets darker. Saddam decreed that the executioners would not be soldiers, not hired killers. No, they would be the other 46 men who weren't sentenced. Imagine that. You're told, if you want to live, you must execute your fellow party member, your friend, your comrade. One bullet, one life. If you hesitate, you're next. The executions happened in a courtyard behind the courtroom. Each condemned man stood opposite the man chosen to kill him. Most of the executioners had never fired a weapon in their lives. Their hands shook. Some missed several times before landing a fatal shot. As this horror unfolded, word spread across Baghdad. Crowds gathered near the execution yard, cheering Saddam's name. They believed the president was cleansing the nation of traitors. But this purge wasn't just about removing enemies. It was about sending a message. I am the state. I am the law. I am Iraq. By publicly executing dissenters and forcing others to become executioners, Saddam didn't just kill opposition. He broke the spirit of the party. He forced every survivor to carry the guilt, the fear, and the trauma of that day forever. After that, no one dared to challenge him. The country entered what many historians call the silent years. No more public dissent, no more opposition speeches, just silence, and Saddam's voice echoing through every TV, radio, and newspaper. And so began Saddam Hussein's reign, with a speech, a cigar, and a hall full of men who realized too late what loyalty truly meant in Saddam's Iraq. If you found this story powerful or chilling, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments. Do you think Saddam cried because he was proud, guilty, or simply victorious? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.